Welcome to today's session on SEO link building strategies for startups. This is part of an ongoing growth series of content and presentations that we're doing through Mucker. I know many of you who are probably logging in, either listening to this live or are going to be listening to the recording of this afterwards, are part of the Mucker portfolio, Mucker family. So we welcome you. And because we also opened this particular session up to the general public, we know many of you probably are not part of the Mucker family, and that's okay. We welcome you. We're glad you're here. We hope that this session is a great learning opportunity for you, and will give you additional options or ways to continue to get content like this from us in the future. But before we get started, let's cover a few basic housekeeping items that everyone seems to always ask in these type of sessions. First one is, will the full recording be available? Yes, we are recording this, and we will make it available after today, probably sometime tomorrow. And look out for it on Mucker's website. We'll probably put it on our blog. So just head over to mucker.com and check it out. If you want to get notified, we encourage you to subscribe. We're redoing our website, so it might be a little bit hard to find out where you need to go, but it's there somewhere. At the very least, if you need to reach out to myself, you can email me at tony@mucker.com. We'll give information at the end, and I'll be sure to give you the recording. So at any rate, we are recording this. You will be able to get access to this and perhaps even the slides afterwards, after the session. Second is, we do want this to be as interactive as possible. Obviously, it's just my guest, Eric, who I'll introduce in a second, and myself doing the presentation. But definitely ask your questions, provide even your own comments and points of view into the chat or Q&A box at the bottom of your screen in the Zoom UI. We'll try to address most of the questions at the end, which we'll reserve some time for specific Q&A, but there might be opportunities for us to address questions in line with the presentation as Eric goes through it. So definitely be involved, provide your comments and questions as well via the chat box at the bottom, chat, or I think it's either chat or Q&A at the bottom. All right, so with that aside now, let's get into the meaty part. Got to introduce myself. My name's Tony Yang. If you haven't met me yet, I'm the head of growth at Mucker, which basically means I get the opportunity and privilege to work with many of our portfolio companies and helping them with their growth strategies. But really, the star of today's show is our guest and subject matter expert, Eric Carrell. He's the founder and CEO of DoFollow.io, which is an SEO agency that we have partnered with, and they specifically focus on link building. That's all they do, and they do it well. And so we do have, as a partner with us at Mucker, there are certain benefits for Mucker portfolio companies, which we'll talk about at the end. But Eric, welcome. Super excited to have you to share your wealth of knowledge. I'll let you do a more in-depth introduction for yourself. And yeah, go ahead and take it away.
Yeah, man, I appreciate that. Yeah, so my name's Eric Carrell. I'm one of the founders of DoFollow.io. I've been in SEO for about 10 years. I started just doing like affiliate sites, niche sites, but I've always had like a specific focus with link building. I also like entered SEO at a very pivotal time. So this was right around when they rolled out Penguin. The Penguin algorithm update was specifically focused on like web spam and like manipulative tactics around link building and whatnot. So I felt like I got a very unique perspective because that's like right when they killed like PBMs and stuff like that. So I really had to like learn link building from like a very specific point. So yeah, so after I did my own websites, I moved into work in-house for a couple major software companies building their links. And so I led a couple teams that were building like 500 links a month. So like really, really strong teams building really, really high quality links. And from there, I moved into doing more freelance stuff. So I started like getting a name for myself around the link building industry because I had like a Facebook group and whatnot. And then I started getting a lot of offers to build links for these different companies. And so, I did freelance for a bit. And then in 2017, we started DoFollow.io. And today we work with some of the largest tech and SaaS companies in the world, building some incredible links. I run it with my business partner, Sebastian Schaefer. He's out of Berlin. We're a team of roughly 20 now, mostly link builders, a couple of data miners and whatnot. But yeah, that's basically who we are. Yeah. So getting into the agenda of what I want to cover. So I want to talk a little bit about the benefits of SEO. I don't want to go too far into it. I imagine a lot of people in here know sort of the benefits around it, but I want to go into kind of how we view it at DoFollow. I also want to talk a little bit about like the content foundation. I think that this is a part where a lot of people miss. They kind of focus on one area or another, but they don't really kind of get their house in order in terms of content. So I want to talk a little bit of that about that as well. And then I'll move into more of around, some of the specific tactics. So this is going to be broken up into a couple of different areas, more of the, what we call like ground zero link building tactics. So stuff that founders can do themselves, kind of like the initial links that you should be building for your brand. And then I'll get into some more advanced link building tactics later, stuff that we're actually using with actual scripts that we're reaching out with people for to get really, really big links. And then I'll talk a little bit about like common pitfalls, like stuff where people kind of tend to mess up in the beginning and where, we've already made a lot of mistakes, so we can kind of help you guys not make the same mistakes. Yeah, and then like measuring expectations. I think that that's one of the hardest things because link building is just a lot different than, or SEO is a lot different than like PPC or some of these other like immediate return tactics. So we'll talk a little bit about like expectations and measuring performance. So getting into the benefits of SEO. So unlike other marketing strategies, like I said, like SEO really doesn't cost you anything. It costs you your time. It costs you like, that's basically it. But if you're in the beginning and you're writing the content yourself and you're doing this outreach yourself, it's really not like other like ad strategies or anything like that. Like it just costs the time. So that's one of the benefits of SEO. Also, like you're able to target buyer specific traffic with SEO. So you're able to target more buyer specific keywords where you think where it's actually going to be quality traffic to your site, and not necessarily just like this sort of high level top of the funnel traffic. But also, one thing that I found really interesting is SEO actually gets more clicks than PPC. So I think people have just become like have like ad fatigue. And so I know that I do, at least like when I'm searching for something, I'll just scroll right past the ads and I'll go to kind of like the more organic results because I feel like those kind of have more trust. And so you can actually expect more traffic from SEO than PPC. But also, one of the good things about it is like once you set up the systems, you can scale it really hard just by adding more and more resources into it. But also, I want to talk a little bit about the 3 pillars of SEO. So first is technical infrastructure, just making sure that like the website isn't code bloated, that it's streamlined technically. There's also content curation. So like building content driven keywords, both top of the funnel and bottom of the funnel keywords that attract readers, but also link building. So link building for SEO, just the process of earning these hyperlinks, just the process of earning these links from other trusted websites that will help your website earn that trust and earn that topical relevance. But also like measuring and testing, like you should always be testing this stuff. You should always be setting up A/B testing different strategies to make sure that you guys are actually making the most of your SEO strategy. So speaking of link building, that's what we're going to focus on today. So like, why is link building mission critical? Like, first of all, it's one of the most important ranking factors still. Like it's been shown that it's much, much harder to rank, if not impossible to rank without links. So like you can think of links as like the infrastructure of the internet. It's how Google finds content, it's how it prioritizes content, right? It's also like there are good links and there are bad links, and it's just really easy to mess up. That's why link building is another reason why link building is mission critical, is like it's just really difficult to, especially at the beginning, to even know if the results or if the link building that you're doing is actually going to provide good results. Another thing that it's more of a prediction, but we think that in the future, links are going to be even more important than they are now, because it's so easy to spin up content. Like you can just spin up content using AI assistants with like the click of a button. And so we think there's actually going to be more importance placed on link building in the future, because it's really hard to build links from like these really, really trustworthy media outlets, right? Another thing is when you do get it right, it can be a complete game changer. So this is a project that we started at the end of 2021. It's in a super, super competitive niche. It's in like social media marketing. But basically, they have really good content systems. They have really good technical SEO infrastructure. And we just kind of provided the horsepower, right? We built 172 links so far through HARO and other content marketing strategies. And it's just been a game changer for them. Like their content has just gone through the roof. Speaking of content, so thinking of like, I think this is where a lot of people kind of they kind of get link building wrong. Like they think that they can just kind of provide like, like their base buyer intent content. And then like we can kind of like build the links and that they're just going to grow. And that's not really how it works. Like you kind of have to have a really, really good content infrastructure before you set up anything else, right? So like providing good keyword driven content. And that includes top of the funnel content, which means like more of like the blog section type stuff, the more like info driven stuff, not necessarily just product driven, but also bottom of the funnel content. So stuff that's more like buyer intent, but also like using internal links to kind of fuse all of that together, right?
Hey, Eric,
Yeah.
I have a question. I get asked this quite a bit, which is it ever too early to focus on SEO? And let's frame it in the context of link building, right? Because earlier, a couple of minutes ago, you just mentioned about having a need for certain types of content. At a minimum, what kind of content do you feel like a company needs to have in place in order to do quality link building, or at least start on that initiative?
Yeah, I think that, our general rule is, we want you to have your bottom of the funnel piece of content, however many that is to you. So if you have like 5 products, maybe you have five different product pages set up for those products, or maybe you have a bunch of different products. So you have different product pages set up for those. But in terms of top of the funnel content, we have a rule that we want to work with at least 10 different pieces of content. So top of the funnel content is really more of like the content that answers questions. It helps us sort of bridge those knowledge gaps. It helps us build those relationships with editors and contributors for big publications. So we want you to have your bottom of the funnel content, but also, we recommend at least having like like 10 more top of the funnel, more info driven content. So you kind of, you're building that sort of topical relevance around your products as well. But those are the pages that are really going to attract the links, are the piece of content that answer questions. But as long as you're internally linking from those pieces of content to your more bottom of the funnel piece of content that passes that link equity through the website, it also helps Google understand that those pages are your most important pages.
Okay, so if I can either summarize or make sure I understand correctly, so top of the funnel answering questions typically found in perhaps blog sections, but there could be FAQs and things like that may not necessarily live in a blog post on your website, could be on other parts of your website. Yeah. But bottom of the funnel, yeah, go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, another good resource is like glossaries, just like, like a glossary that has pages set up that are answering or covering specific terms within your industry. There are a lot of different ways you can do it, but as long as those pieces of content are answering questions, meaning like, how to set up your own VPN or something like that, right? So it's like a piece of content that's like really informative.
Yeah, got it. Okay, and in terms of bottom of the funnel content, do you equate that with more product focused type of pages on companies' websites, or are there other types of content that's not specifically like a product page?
Yeah, there are probably a couple of different ways you can do it. What we usually see is very, very specific product ideas. So maybe it's employee monitoring or employee recognition. It's just these very specific concepts. And those are usually some sort of sales page, or at least drops people into a sales funnel. That's usually how it looks.
Got it. Okay, great. Thank you.
Great. So yeah, that's basically like the general content foundation that we recommend people see. It's also what we see. It's just a way to set up your content foundation to support the link building that you do. So from here, I want to talk about more like what we call like the ground zero link building. Ground zero link building there are link building tactics that you can do right now that, a founder can do, or like a small marketing team can do, that will help sort of like not only build that like that link, that backlink foundation, but it also kind of serves that PR purpose. So a lot of these tactics will be, also a way to kind of reach that different audience and connect with people in different ways, but they also help kind of build up that backlink foundation and get those topically relevant backlinks. So first I'm going to talk about HARO. HARO is probably one that a lot of people have seen before. It's pretty well known. Basically what HARO is a way for sources to connect with contributors or journalists. So basically, like if you are the owner of an employee time tracking agency or something like that, then you're really familiar with that realm, or an HR tech agency and you're really familiar with that realm. Then there are journalists who go on to this platform to connect with experts in different areas. And basically what these people want to do, what these journalists want to do, is they want to get expert quotes for their articles. And usually what that looks like is they'll quote you, they say who you are, and then they'll give you a backlink to your business. So it's a really effective way to sort of start building that backlink foundation, but also, kind of get you more exposure for your brand as well. So, I mean, this is basically what like the general setup looks like. So it's really, really easy to set this up. You just go to haro.com, you set up your account. It's really important that as you're going through this process, you be mindful of who is registering. A lot of people want to outsource this, which can be okay. But journalists really, really like to hear from CEOs, C-level executives, as opposed to like a junior marketer or something like that. So basically what you would do is you would select the industry that you want to work in. So if you're in tech, you want to select tech. If you have more of a, an HR tech company or something like that, then you need to move to more of the business and finance realm, but just kind of set that up so that you can start getting the emails. And this is what it looks like basically. So, the emails are sent out 3 times a day. They come from a variety of different outlets. So, this is going to be, we've gotten links from really, really big publications this way. So they're going to be from, different websites, just people who are trying to supplement their content with these more expert resources. And then each query has different guidelines. So you would open up a query, let's say that it's somebody who's looking for, B2B e-commerce entrepreneurs looking to share their expertise building an online business. So you would, if you fit that match, and you would go in there, you would open up the link. They would kind of have a longer form explanation of what they're looking for, the guidelines, the deadlines, and that's really important to read because some of these are really time sensitive. And so you would basically just start writing out your pitch, right? It's also important to note that a lot of them will be anonymous. We have found that really big publications go this route, so they don't just get blown up by people wanting to get links from them. So we've landed a link from like americanexpress.com, using this tactic, but they try to go that more anonymous route so they don't just get blown up from people trying to get links from them. And then this is the anatomy of a pitch. And I kept it really simple here, and I'll kind of explain it a bit more. But, what you want to do is, this is a pitch that I actually used to land a link. And essentially what I said is, my name is Eric Carrell. This is for a company that I bought a couple of years ago. And I said, I run this company. We've been around for 20 years, which was true to that company. During that time, our technical advice has been seen in places like New York Times, PC Mag, Popular Mechanics, etc. And then for the contribution, what I wanted to do is I wanted to break my contribution down into parts that were like quotable chunks, basically. So that like I lay this out in a way that, she can basically choose between like 4 different quotes that she thinks will fit the part that she's trying to supplement most in her article. And then this is the outcome. So, this was the response that we got. This is a link that we landed on zoom.com, or legalzoom.com rather, which is in the US. It's a really, really big company. It took me about 7 minutes to write. It has, 1.4 million traffic per month. And we also have this relationship with this person now because they wrote for many different publications. So now we have this relationship with this person that we can, leverage in the future. And then a couple of different things you want to keep in mind with this is like, you want to make this look as as professional as possible. So like if you can add, a signature block with your LinkedIn information, your website, anything that you can do to kind of build that, that credential foundation will help you land these links. And these are some other places that we built HARO links. So you can kind of see the quality that we're talking about here, like Bloomberg.com, Washington Post, MSN, Inc.com. So really, really top of the tier publications here. So it's a really good strategy to take to get these really big links, but also get like the exposure to kind of build that trust foundation with Google as well.
Great. Actually, Eric, I have several questions
Yeah.
about HARO or HARO.
Sure.
I've always called it HARO, but
Yeah.
tomato, doesn't matter.
Sure.
And I know you have a lot to cover, so I want to try to make these questions quick, but they're
Sure.
specific to HARO. Okay, so one, HARO is free to sign up, right?
Free to sign up, but you can also pay for a premium account that will allow you to get the quotes or the queries quicker than other people.
Got it. Okay, perfect. So for those who are listening and are new to HARO, it's free to sign up. So, no cost, right? So, but the second thing is around time, which you mentioned. And I think you also did mention that you get around 3 of these notices per day via email. So do you have any tips or, how do you manage this influx of notifications 3 times per day, almost every day, pretty much? How do you manage and figure out, okay, these are the ones that we should reply to? Do you have a certain way of managing these kind of requests?
Yeah, I mean,
identify them?
I think most of it's cutting out the noise. So a lot of people will sort of subscribe to all of the different industries that come in, but to kind of know where your expertise is going to be valued the most, I think is really important. So if you only, subscribe to I would, for example, only subscribe to business and finance because I'm running the business and that's kind of where I fit in this, right? But if you own a tech company and that's kind of you're an operator, that's kind of your expertise, then you could just subscribe to that one. So, and I think that really just, I think kind of setting a timer for yourself or like kind of setting an alarm for this is what I've seen a lot of people do. That's how we systemized it in the past. So we would know exactly when they were coming out. We would be able to hop right on them because a lot of these are really, really time sensitive. So being able to be able to have an idea of when they're going to come out, and so you can skim them really quickly and see, okay, is there anything in here that I can contribute to? And it really just depends on how broad you want to be as well. Like if you run, a coding company, there might not always be a coding specific query in there, but there might be something about, running the business in general that you can say, okay, I can at least respond to that.
Great. Okay. And so I had a question regarding time sensitivity. So on average, what have you seen in terms of how quickly should you respond to a request or an inquiry once you see that notification?
This has gotten to be a really popular tactic. So we really recommend, if you're going to systemize this, to have somebody or have yourself waiting for this as it comes out, because they're just getting a lot of responses to these. So the quicker that you can get in, the quicker you can get your response to the top of their email, then that's probably the best way to go about it. I've seen, but in terms of, I've seen queries that were, just respond, sometime in the next 2 weeks, or I've seen something like, hey, I need a quote, by 10 o'clock this morning, and they're on a deadline,
Great. Okay. And then one last question about HARO. So do you recommend providing links to content specific pages like we talked about before, whether it's answering a question on your blog post on your website, or just simply giving them the main domain of your website, your homepage?
By nature, you're probably just going to get those main domain website or main domain links to your root domain, which is perfect. It's fine. It's a good way to kind of build that link foundation, that authority foundation. What I have done in the past that's converted a couple of times is if we had, a piece of content that was perfectly answering a question of theirs, I could say, hey, we actually wrote a piece about this, or like a piece of research or something like that, that would be a good supplementary resource for them. Then you can include that. Yeah. But I wouldn't use that as a tactic to get links to those deeper pages on your website.
Yeah. Perfect. Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. So the next thing I'm going to talk about is podcasts. This is one that we've done for ourselves. actually at DoFollow.io with quite a bit of success. We've been on both my partner and I've been on podcasts, and we've built a lot of backlinks that way. I want to talk about it in the context of just backlinks, because there are a lot of benefits with podcasts. We actually just started doing podcasts just because we wanted the reach, not necessarily because of the backlinks, but with that came a bunch of backlinks, right? So, it's basically broken down into 4 parts, finding the relevant shows, finding those podcasts that are going to be relevant to your audience, because you want to build relevant backlinks, right? But also vetting the shows to make sure that it's actually worth, if you're going to be using this as a backlink building strategy, that it's actually worth the link that you get from it, right? Because if they don't give you if they just mention you but don't give you a link, or if the website doesn't have like good credentials, or the website doesn't have good metrics, and I don't know if going on doing an hour-long podcast is really worth the backlink, right? And then reaching out to that vetted list, and then just getting on the podcast with these people, right? So for this, we've done it a lot of different ways. I would recommend just starting in Google. Like, I just kind of randomly typed in this like logistics podcast to see like how specific these podcasts go. And like, not only are there just a lot of like singular podcasts and like that snippet that Google has, but there's also a bunch of roundups for podcasts as well. So this is where I would start. There are a lot of other places where you can go. You can look at Apple Podcasts. You can look at, Ahrefs and do reverse engineering and competitors. That kind of gets a little bit more complicated. But in terms of cost and usability, Google's the best place to start. Like, it has everything you need, really. So from there, you want to start building, a list of podcasts you can start outreaching to. This is actually one that we built for myself when I was doing podcasts and I was trying to get on B2B podcast. This is basically the information we had in there. So, where it was, kind of like where the rank was, show notes, different stuff so that we can kind of get an idea of like, this is going to be a good podcast to get on. A couple of things that I would add here is like more of the metrics. So if you're looking at, for specific metrics or specific traffic, or, if you're looking at website quality, you might want to note that stuff in here as well. But from here, you want to try to figure out if these links or if these podcasts are like actually going to be worth the links. So some of the stuff that I want to see is like, in addition to a website having good traffic, I also want to see them ranking for good quality keywords. I want to see them building a bunch of content around this industry, so that like, if I go on there and I do a podcast, I'm actually getting a link from like a really relevant site. Like, that's what, podcast in the context of link building, like that's what you want to see, right? So the reach is like, that's a really good bonus. But if you're doing this for link building, like the reach is kind of like, maybe it'll grow over time or something like that. But basically, you want to make sure like, is this a podcast still running? Do they link the guests? And you can find that all in the podcast notes. So this is basically what it looks like when you are actually reaching out. So, there are 2 basic ways to pitch podcasts. We've done both. So submission forms would be this one at the bottom left, is like, this is a podcast that's about, digital project management. They have a submission form. You can also just email the owner or email either the host or the manager for procurement. And then basically what you want to say is you want to break it down into 3 different sections, why you're an expert in this field, places you've been featured in the past to sort of like, again, build up that credibility foundation, but also topics you'd like to cover, so I would recommend like looking through their past episodes and then saying, okay, like, what can I bring to the table that hasn't been covered already? And then you can just give all that in one email. This is who I am. This is where I've been covered. This is what I want to talk about. A lot of these places, unless it's like Joe Rogan or Tim Ferriss or something, a lot of these places, they're ready to, like, they're looking for podcast host or podcast guest. So this is one that we built a relationship with and we reached out to. This is for our company. Excuse me. So, in addition to getting this link from Authority Hacker, We also, we also got on their podcast and this is just on YouTube. I think we had like 3.3 thousand views on this. We also did another one with them that had closer to 7,000 views, I think. But, so in addition to getting this backlink, we also got like a bunch of clients from doing this as well, because it was just a perfect fit. It's an SEO podcast. We're a link building firm. So their audience matches our audience. So
all right. Yeah. Question on podcasts.
Yeah, quick. Yeah.
Okay.
I thought so.
Yeah. So podcasts, I totally agree with you. A lot of benefits to being a guest on a podcast, aside from pure link building. But specifically to link building, do you prioritize podcasts that actually has some sort of link, like a backlink back to your website? And what does that look like? Is it because that they transcribe a podcast episode that you're on and then post it somewhere on their website? Or is it usually just a simple description that's located in the, podcast description on Apple Podcasts or whatever, right? That just says, hey, Eric from DoFollow and hyperlink at DoFollow. Which, is there a difference? Is there a benefit versus one or the other?
There's really no difference. The main thing that I would be specifically looking for is like contextual relevance, So as long as whether they post the transcript, whether they are right, I think that this one I'm showing you right now was a description. So they actually just kind of talked about us in the show notes and then linked to us. So really what I'm looking for here is just contextual relevance in some way, talking about us in the context of the industry.
Got it. Okay, great. And then another question is, it's a long time commitment. So do you have any guidelines on, how to best get started? I know you recommended going to Google to do a search, and then you showed some sort of spreadsheet where you keep track. This in particular for podcasts can take up a lot of time.
Sure.
For busy founders, right? That their day jobs to run their company and also do a lot of other things like SEO or link building.
Yeah.
What would you recommend to them? Should they focus on podcasts and doing podcast outreach to get on a particular show? Or, if you do recommend that, should they try to target a certain amount per time period? Like what are your recommendations?
Yeah.
For founders?
I think the benefits are so high with this because we've seen it. We've doubled our business up just by getting on specific podcasts because it has so much good reach if you do it right, that I do think it's worth it. I think that there are ways to streamline it. This is one way here. You can see to the right here that we had a media kit produced that had all these questions answered. So it had, who I was, what I did, why I'm an expert, where I've been featured in the past, and topics that I wanted to talk about. And we use that to kind of connect with people. You can also use services we've used, there are podcast booking services. Some of them are kind of expensive. Some of them aren't that bad. So if you want to get bullish on this strategy, you can get a podcast booking service. I think we used Kitcaster in the past to kind of streamline that for me. So I don't really have to worry about doing the outreach myself. It's more about, okay, this is who we want to target, and you just let them run with it.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. And I know we still have a lot to cover. So
yeah.
We'll save more questions for later. Yep.
It's no problem. Yeah. So it's from here, as you're building out these strategies, as you're doing HARO and as you're doing podcasting, what we've realized is it starts to compound over time. So what you want to have is a brand mention, or some people call it link reclamation strategy in place, where, you are getting in tune with where you're being mentioned around the web. And then you can systemize outreach around that. So basically, you can use monitoring services. I have a Google Alerts, it's free. I also have Ahrefs, where it tells me where I'm being mentioned, where my company's being mentioned. We have it set up for myself, my partner, our brand. We also have you set up for our competitors, for competitor analysis as well. But as these come in, as you start getting on more and more, as you're doing HARO and as you're just getting your brand out more, you want to have this set up so that you can understand where you're being mentioned, because you're not always going to know that. Basically, this is just where people are talking about you, but not necessarily linking to you. So yeah, Google Alerts is like the best free way. I have Google Alerts again set up for myself, set up for my business partner. We have it set up for all competitors as well, just so I can keep track of where they're being mentioned at and see if I can get links that way as well. This is a much slower way to go about getting brand mention links, but it will allow you to start capitalizing on places where maybe people start talking about you in, product roundups or something like that, but they're not actually linking to you. So this is a really good way to kind of start making sure that you are just staying in tune with making sure that you're getting the most out of all the outreach and the PR that you're doing. So this is a way that you can kind of get more aggressive about it. We've done this a lot in the past as well. Ahrefs, this is an SEO research tool. There are other tools that do this as well, but Ahrefs is probably the best. This is one that's a bit more advanced, but it's a way that you can go about doing this as well. Is they have this content explorer feature where you can type in your brand name or even type in your name or your partner's name or whatever it is, and then select end content, and they'll tell you everywhere around the web where you're being linked to, or where you're being mentioned. And then you can also go a step further and say, okay, out of all these places, who is mentioning us but not linking to us? Which gives you a very, very specific outreach process there. You can say, okay, DoFollow.io was mentioned in this roundup, but they're not linking to us. If they're already mentioning us, then you have a pretty good chance of getting a link as well. So this is one that we did for a company called Mailshake, or one we found for a company called Mailshake. You can see here, this is a website called Website Engine. It's got a ton of traffic. It's super relevant to this brand, and they're mentioning them, but they're not linking to them. But they do outbound links, because this link right below it where it says sales funnel software, that is an outbound link to another brand. So it's not against like policy. It's like some companies it's against policy to link out. So it's not against policy. They do link out, but they're just not linking to you. So what I would do is reach out to them. This one's hard to read, but basically what I said was, I'm being tasked with reclaiming some of these links. You guys mentioned us with, I found this article where you mentioned us. I was hoping you'd link back to us just so people can find us, just so that we're getting proper attribution. And this is where they responded and said, I made the update basically. So just a way to, you're finding out where you're being mentioned, you're going on the offense, and you're reclaiming those links. Do you have any questions on that, Tony? Yeah.
No, we'll save some of the questions for this part till later. Yeah.
Sure. So where I always start, and this is one that's always overlooked, is just networking. Every project I've ever started for myself where I needed to build links, I just reached out to friends, reached out to competitors, and just started building those relationships. If I have a friend that owns, an SEO blog and I'm trying to build a link for DoFollow, hey, can I write a piece of content for you? Can I give you a quote? Can I add some sort of value so I can get a link in return? And I think that's where a lot of people don't do that. It's a very, very effective way to kind of build those really early links that would get you started. So this is more about how we work at DoFollow. This is, some more advanced outreach tactics. I have this cute little quote here. Link building is like dating. You have to be genuine, consistent, and patient. If you're lucky, you'll end up with a strong, mutually beneficial relationship. And that's how we approach link building in every sense, right? We're reaching out to people and saying, okay, how can we build a relationship with you so that, we have that mutual benefit, so that it's mutually beneficial for both of us. You get something, we get something. This is somebody who we reached out to. It's called OptiMonk. It's a software company. It's got traffic. It's perfect, for a fit for some of our clients. It's a real business. It's not like one of those content farms or something like that. It's a real company. What we did is we search for, content and SEO. We're trying to find people who actually have editing power and actually have an incentive to talk to us, so you want to search for, that's what we search for, like content, SEO. You can search for marketing, just try to find the right people to reach out to, really. And what we did from there is basically think, okay, like what is going to incentivize this person? If it is an SEO manager for this person, for example, maybe building them a link somewhere else might incentivize them. If it is if it's an editor, maybe they just want a really good resource to link out to. It's important not to reach out to everybody at once though. You're going to like probably make somebody mad in the company. But, this is basically what we did to reach out to them. We're a SaaS link building agency representing a client that has an amazing resource on e-commerce statistics. Thought it might be a good additional article for you. This is somebody who they're trying to beef up their articles with just good resources, right? So, putting something in front of them that's going to incentivize them. Another example is we built a link on Avada.com. This is a really, really well-known website. It's got a ton of traffic. It's super relevant to our clients. It's also just like everybody kind of knows that website. This is something pretty funny is we have a very diverse team. So we have people who speak tons of different languages. So we basically reached out to somebody who we thought we could connect with because we had somebody who lived in the same part of the world as they did. And we said, basically, hey, they were an SEO manager, so we thought, okay, what's going to incentivize them? So we reached out to him and said, hey, let me get you a link on a really good website that we've already made a relationship with. And then in exchange, you link to our client's website. And basically, that SEO manager can now show this really great link that they built. In exchange, our client gets a link. And it's just a really good, sort of mutually beneficial relationship. And these are some other examples of links that we built using these tactics. So you can kind of see an idea of the quality here, ActiveCampaign, HubSpot, AT&T.com. I mean, really, really big, heavy hitting websites. And that just kind of shows the power of, reaching out to these people and really trying to, think about what's going to be incentivizing to them and, how can you bridge that gap? Like, how can you build that relationship? And that's what we do for all of our clients. So these are just examples of links that we built in the past. So, I mean, that's it for the advanced link building strategies. Really quick, I can talk about, common pitfalls. So, things that people do, things that we've done in the past that can either burn time or can, have technical ramifications, stuff like that. So I think people who get too engaged in link building or link exchanges is an issue. So, and also people now who are getting kind of sucked into these link networks where everybody's kind of linking to each other. I mean, that's just stuff where eventually you're going to have issues there, right? Like Google kind of picks up on those sorts of networks. So something that I would avoid. Also, doing outreach from your main email address, that's something that we've run into in the past. We've had a lot of issues with that in the past, actually, getting, sending domains blacklisted because you're not being careful about the quality of outreach you're doing. And if you get an email address blacklisted, that can hurt transactional emails. So we always recommend trying different variations, since we're DoFollow.io, maybe we set up an email address that's just try DoFollow.io or DoFollow.cc or something like that. Also,
Okay. I have not a question for that, but I have a comment related to that.
Yeah.
Excuse me. So many of our portfolio companies, one of the first go-to-market motions that we recommend is to do outbound. And so treat what Eric just suggested as almost like an outbound sales outreach, but in this case, it's outbound for, securing link exchanges. So we have resources on the Mucker founder portal under the growth playbook on different things you can do to make sure that you're outbound. Again, in this case, it's about outbound for link building purposes, that you don't get dinged for spammy email and other types of things that will get you in trouble. So we have resources in the growth playbook. If you haven't checked it out, go check it out. But treat these types of reaches, if you're going to be reaching out to people to secure backlinks for, treat this process as an outbound, very similar as an outbound sales process.
Yep, exactly. And if you are going to do outbound with them, I would recommend using mailtoaster.ai to warm up the email address. I mean, you can also use mailtoaster.com to test the deliverability of the email address as well. Just kind of some maintenance around the email address.
Perfect.
Also, not having clear quality assurance process in place. So like not really knowing, what's a good website, what isn't. For us, we look for, okay, is this website does it have a real business model behind it? We look at, is they actually have relevant content and relevant traffic. So a couple of things you want to look at, just so that you're making sure that the links you're going after are actually going to have an impact and they're not just like these low quality content sites. And one thing you can look at for there is like, if they, at the top they have like, travel and tech and pets, and like they're covering kind of everything in the spectrum, and they have articles around all of those, it's probably something to avoid unless it's like Good Housekeeping, like, a really well-known website like that. And then also like anchor text or like metric perfectionism. So like saying like, okay, I only want to build, links that have, these particular metrics, and they're looking at Moz and Ahrefs and all these different places for metrics, or like, only trying to build links with specific anchor text. We also try to avoid that. We always let the editors and the contributors decide how they want those links to fit into their articles. And then, lastly, just spreading your team too thin. So like saying, okay, like, all right, let's, throw marketing into link building as well. Usually what you want to do is, you can kind of start with that, but as soon as you're able to start scaling, you want to have like a dedicated link builder on your team, or like, outsource it in some way, just because we've seen a lot of people just spin their wheels, not really getting any traction, because, the junior marketing person's wearing 7 different hats, and it's just, they're just not able to get any traction. So it's always good to kind of keep that in mind, because this stuff just takes a lot of work. And then, quickly, expectations around this stuff. Again, SEO is not PPC. It's not, a 1-for-1 spend, like you spend this and then you get immediate results in a month or a couple of weeks or whatever. SEO, Google, we have a video on our website. Google recommends anywhere between 4 and 12 months to start seeing results. We've seen anywhere in that spectrum. We've also seen it happen a lot quicker than that, but it's just good to kind of have those expectations in mind, that you're not likely going to see like results in the first 2 weeks or a month or whatever it is. And also keeping in mind that, SEO is holistic. You need links, but you also need content, you need tech. It all needs to work in concert together, for you to get the most out of it. And then, again, this sort of timeline, this 4 to 12 months is usually what we tell our clients. And then lastly, building systems around this stuff. If you start kind of putting the systems in place and you have a process for all these, for content creation, for link building, you have, your tech stack together, then you can scale it over time as you guys start seeing results. So it's good to kind of go into the systemized approach.
All right.
That's basically it. Yeah.
You covered quite a bit. And okay, so we've had some questions come in through the course of the presentation. I'll start going through them. I also have some additional questions I wanted to ask that I've been holding off. Those of you guys who are still with us, please take advantage of the remaining several minutes. If you have burning questions, please type them into the Q&A box. But the first question I'll ask, which I kind of held off until now, is at the very beginning of your presentation, you mentioned good links and bad links. Can you dig a little bit more into what bad links look like? How do you stop them from taking place? What to look for? And maybe just explain the difference between those two.
Yeah, I mean, I covered it a bit, a bit ago, but really, like, you want a website to have like a tone, a voice, an editorial process, right? Like if a website doesn't have an editorial process, if it has in the footer or in the main menu, submit a guest post or something like that, you can go and submit a guest post for $50 and they try to charge you. Like that's something we would never touch, right? You wanted to, like, the harder, this is a funny rule, but the harder the link is to get, usually the more valuable it is. So that's something to keep in mind. So, what we like to see is an actual business model behind these websites. We like to see, an actual like industry specific website. So a website that is, it only focuses on, cybersecurity, for example, if we're building links for a VPN site or something like that. You don't want to go into a website that just kind of covers, they cover travel and just a bunch of different things like that. But, I think those are kind of the 3 main things: is relevance, that also means that they have relevant content and relevant traffic. So they're ranking for relevant keywords. They have an editorial process, and they have some sort of business model that isn't selling links.
Okay, those are great. And this kind of ties into my next question, which you did touch upon a bit. I'm sure many of us in this call have received inbound requests for link exchanges. Like we get them sometimes, even on Mucker's side, we get like past companies that get a bunch of them. How do you, again, maybe this is reiterating what you just said, but like, how do you identify potential opportunities for those that are just spammy in nature that come in?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that they are necessarily like link exchanges. I have kind of an older school view on this. I don't think that they're inherently bad. A lot of times in the past, two companies would have two resource pages and they would sort of link back to each other because it made a lot of sense. Like, I think the rule is, if you had linked to this company naturally without them asking you for the link and without you getting a link back, then I think it usually makes sense, to be honest. So I think that you just kind of have to use your discretion around it. If it's obviously somebody who's trying to build a process, a link building strategy around link exchanges, that's something you want to avoid.
Okay. Throughout the website, you had several data points or metrics or phrases that include DR and a number. Okay,
yeah.
So those of us who've been in SEO know what that stands for, but maybe just for the benefit of everyone, can you describe what that is and what the importance of that is for link building?
Yeah. So a lot of SEO tools will have their own proprietary metric system. So, DR that I had in here was Ahrefs. It stands for domain rating. Basically, it's calculated with, the power of domains that are linking to it and the quantity of domains that are linking to it. I might be missing something there. I think that those are really the only two though. And then basically, the more links that a website has and from a higher quality or higher DR links that a website has, then the higher the score of that website, essentially. So DA is also one you'll hear. That's from Moz. I think, SEMrush has one. I don't use SEM, so I don't know which one they use, but it's really important to not get caught up in those types of metrics. I think that I put those on to kind of give people guidelines on the how those websites are rated, but Google doesn't even know what DR or DA is. They don't look at that. They don't care about it. Really the North Star metric for Google is relevancy and the quality of the website. So making sure that website is that's not selling links or anything like that. That's kind of the few things that they look at. And that's something to keep in mind as well, is to not get too hung up on the metrics of those websites, unless you're looking at traffic, because you do want to see relevant traffic.
Right. And I think, the whole notion of DA, domain authority or domain rating, is really around the quality of the website. And, like a pretty well-known thing in SEO, ever since SEO was a thing, is, quality. And a lot of people, think, all right, if you could get a link from, let's say, .edu or .gov or on Wikipedia or whatever, right, you are typically considered higher authority type of domains, and getting those links are generally better. Kind of a follow-on question to DA, DR, is it generally better to get quantity of, not spammy type of sites or spammy type of links or link farms, but, let's just say using DA and DR as a proxy for how authoritative a domain is in a particular area or topic? Is it better to get, discussion's sake, a bunch of, mid domain rating, domain authority type of sites, or a few very high quality, like the Inc.coms of the world, the Forbes.coms of the world? In your opinion, what do you think it yields better results?
Yeah, I mean, I would take, a bunch of like industry specific sort of mid-level links, mid-level meaning like DRDA or whatever, over, a link from Forbes, for example, because Forbes just kind of covers everything. I don't really think that that's really going to move the needle that much, even though I think that Google does respect, some of these larger websites. I think that mostly they're looking for relevance. A lot of these websites that, or in this particular example, maybe these websites, they've been around in the industry for a while. They very clearly cover one topic, they're linking to you in a way that's really relevant. I think that that's going to be valued at the end of the day, and over like a, kind of a more general, larger website.
Cool. Okay, we're almost out. We're out of time, but let me ask a couple more questions. There's a few that we unfortunately are not able to get to. So one, just really quick rapid fire. You mentioned a couple of these tools, but what are some tools that you recommend for, things like, link building, identification? You mentioned a couple for podcasts, basically using Google. Are
Yeah.
there any specific tools that you feel are handy that you guys yourselves use as an agency?
Honestly, we run all of our quality assurance through Ahrefs for the most part. I mean, I think that really, if you want to get serious about SEO, that's kind of the main tool that you need to think about. Mention.com is a really good one. Another good one is, that's for brand mentions. Another good one is that we've used in the past is Mailshake. We've also used Respana. Respana is a really good. Those two are outreach tools, basically, so you can start systemizing this outreach that you're doing. So build a spreadsheet, kind of, throw that CSV into those tools and be able to kind of systemize outreach so you can do outreach at scale. So Respana and Mailshake for those two, probably.
Great. And for those of you who are Mucker portfolio companies, we will continue to add resources in the founder portal that will basically list out, here are some suggested or recommended tools for you guys all to use. Okay, so let's wrap up. And yeah, if you don't mind, go to the next slide. One question that someone did ask is, do you work with B2B or B2C companies as well? I assume both, right?
Both. Yeah. As long as there's, we focus mostly on SaaS and tech. So as long as there's an angle there, we'll work with either one.
Perfect. Great. Okay. And so again, Eric at DoFollow.io is his contact information, his email address. You can reach out to me as well. As I mentioned at the beginning of the call, if you guys missed it, DoFollow is now, one of our preferred vendors, partner, whatever you want to call it, where they are offering a discounted service for Mucker portfolio companies. So definitely either reach out to me or Eric, mention you're a Mucker portfolio company, and we'll verify it, obviously, because there are people who aren't part of Mucker, or reach out to Britton at muckercapital.com. If you have access to our perks platform through GAN, it should be listed there, so definitely take advantage of that. Again, a lot of what Eric shared today are things that you guys can do yourselves. But as we all learn, a lot of this does take quite a bit of work, a lot of bandwidth, right? So if you guys do need additional help, Eric and his firm is a resource that we recommend. Second, again, we are going to get better at Mucker to produce more content that's going to be helpful and educational for all of our internal portfolio companies, as well as the general subscribers to our blog. So if you want to stay up to date and have not subscribed, just go to Mucker's blog to get more content, as well as to make sure you're on our mailing list. If you guys have ideas for future sessions that you'd like to see on certain topics, definitely email Britton, or you can simply type it in the chat while it's still open, or the Q&A, we'll get to it. But simply email Britton and just say, hey, would like to have this topic covered. And then lastly, if you're not part of the Mucker family just yet, you're an entrepreneur, you're an early stage company, and you are in need for help, funding, more than just funding, but like part of what we do at Mucker is we actually try to help our portfolio companies and really get down into the operational side. If you are an entrepreneur, go check out our programs. We do operate an accelerator program called Mucker Lab. We also do traditional seed and Series A funding and all that stuff. So I encourage you to check out mucker.com's website and submit or pitch your company if you want to get involved with us. All right, well, that wraps it up. I know we're a little bit over. There was a lot of content to cover.
Yep.
Again, we're going to cover more on the topic of SEO, since SEO is such a broad topic that you could get really deep into. So Eric, thank you again for participating in this webinar with us.
Thank you.
Hopefully we'll get to work more with you in the future. And thanks for all of you who joined today and who are listening to this recording afterwards. Hope that was educational, and stay tuned for the next session. Take care, everyone. Thanks.
Thanks.